Welcome back, everyone. We are now at Unit 12, only a couple more to go. So this unit's all about Africa, the kingdoms in Africa during the Middle Ages. We're going to be focusing on the kingdoms of Aksum, the kingdoms of Great Zimbabwe, and Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, as well as a few other details. You're looking at flight simulator footage of what it looks like today in the Ethiopian highlands, which was the location of the kingdom of Aksum. So this unit in particular has a little bit of geography that you need to know and a little bit of vocabulary words that are familiar from what we've used in the past. So we'll be getting into that here in just a second. Okay, so you can see on the left there is a map, and these are the three regions you need to know. Over on the right is the information about those regions. So these are African kingdoms developed in sub-Saharan, which is under the Sahara Desert, West and East Africa. So Aksum is in East Africa. Zimbabwe is located in the southern or sub-Saharan Africa, and Ghana, Mali, and Songhai are also sub-Saharan, but they're in the west. So now focusing on the map, if you notice, the Sahara Desert is a key feature of Africa. It covers the top and it's very desolate, not a lot of life going on, but right under that you have the Niger River and you have the kingdoms of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. They all existed independently of each other. Down at the south you have the kingdom of Great Zimbabwe, and then up to the northeast you have the kingdom of Aksum. And we'll talk about each of these individually. So focusing on these, however, if you notice to the right, Aksum, it says location relative to the Ethiopian highlands and the Nile River. Relative is just like your relatives, they're close to you. So the kingdom of Aksum, if you look, that blue arrow's pointing to it, you can see the Nile River on the map, and you can see the Ethiopian highlands, which are in the gray, which is where the kingdom is located. The flight simulator video just showed you it's a bunch of mountains and it's, rough land. But if we travel south, you can see there's the Zambezi River and then the Limpopo River. The kingdom of Great Zimbabwe is in the middle between those, so it's relative to the Limpopo River and the Zambezi River, as well as the Indian Ocean coast, which you can see to the east or to the right of the map. Then finally, back up to the top, back to the Sahara Desert and all the camels. So you notice there's an insert picture. It says Ghana, Mali, Songhai. And those kingdoms did not exist at the same time. They were independently active. So one took over after the other and so on. They're located on the Niger River, and that's something that's important to understand. We talked about that way back in the beginning of the year. The main thing about rivers is they provide life. They provide water to drink, irrigation for crops. So here you have the Sahara Desert is close by. Again, Ghana, Mali, and Songhai are sub-Saharan, which they're under the Sahara Desert, where you can start to see some green, which I'll show you soon. But this river is what provides a lot of the opportunity for life. So the first civilization we're going to talk about, or kingdom I should say, is Aksum. Now, Aksum between the 3rd and 6th century AD or CE became a great market in the northeastern African continent. Merchants traded with civilizations beyond the Nile River. Then the other part of the information you need to know is that during the 4th century AD, they became a Christian kingdom, which is weird. Think about this. In Africa, you have many people who are Islam, but then there's also what's called animism, which I'll talk about shortly. So being a Christian kingdom in the middle of where most people are other religions, this was unique. It also became politically and economically linked to the Roman Egypt. So just to remind you, the Romans did conquer Egypt, and the Egyptians became very much Roman-like during this time period. Next brings up Zimbabwe. So the city of Great Zimbabwe is the capital of a prosperous empire, and they utilized Indian Ocean trade routes to connect with Asia. So Great Zimbabwe, as you're going to see here in a moment, is a stone-walled city. So it's very mysterious in some ways because people wonder how they had the technology to make this. And, obviously a city with walls is there to protect you. So today you can still visit this city, and as you're going to see from the flight simulator video, I'm going to fly around it, and then I'm going to show you from Apple Maps what it looks like today as well. So what you're looking at here, this is in between the Limpopo and the Zambezi River. And I'm going to fly right between these mountains. And if you look down in the valley, it's going to be straight at the top center of your screen. You're going to see, it's not a perfect circle, but it's a circular wall made of stones that were stacked up. And this provides protection. And you can see other structures all along. Right there below the airplane as it's coming out, I'm going to circle back so you can see it, so you'll be able to take another look at that. But again, that's a big tourist attraction today, and it's a historical site, very important. And here's what it looks like in Apple Maps. So if you have an iPhone, you can go and look at it yourself, put it in 3D, and that's literally serving for protection back in this medieval time in Africa. And this was very advanced because not everyone on the continent was advanced enough to have stone walls like that. Next up, we have the West African kingdoms of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. The importance of gold and salt to trans-Saharan trade. So we talked about that earlier in the year. You would trade gold for salt because salt is so important to preserve your food. Wish we could do that today. I'm sure I made that same joke earlier. The city of Timbuktu is a center of trade and learning. It became one of the earliest universities in Africa. People would go there to trade goods, and anywhere that you trade, you come in contact with other people, and therefore ideas are exchanged. And last, we have the roles of animism and Islam. So Islam, we've talked about that. We had an entire unit. Obviously, that's a monotheistic religion that emerged from the Middle East. But animism is the belief that all things have a soul. So for example, there is a high amount of protection for the earth, for nature, because you believe everything is alive and has a soul. So this clip here is showing the Niger River. So once again, I remember showing you earlier how the Nile has green all around the river, and that's what led to civilizations popping up along. All rivers are like this. So you have desert everywhere, but all along the river you have green, which means vegetation, plant life in general. So this is just one small section of what the Niger River looks like today. But three civilizations that were very important were able to rise up because of this river and its location and how it provided life in the middle of the desert. So the last slide of information is factors contributing to the European exploration. So there's the demand for gold and spices and natural resources in Europe. So they're coming into Africa to trade for these goods. There's support for diffusion of Christianity. That's another of the vocabulary words. Diffusion is to spread out. Christianity is spreading, kind of like Islam spread. You have political and economic competition between European empires. So again, they want allies, they want trade, they want to build things up. Trade is so important. You have innovations of European and Islamic origins in navigational art. So things like the compass, you have other like the lateen sails. So it makes exploration so much more available to people. And finally, pioneering role of Prince Henry the Navigator. So European trading posts were established all along Africa. This was a way for people to gain access to these resources and the new technology that makes these exploration activities much easier. So this unit's relatively short, so what I wanted to do here is show you the globe. Where the arrow, the little cursor is pointing, that's the Limpopo River and the Zambezi River. So that's where Great Zimbabwe is. Now I'm going to move up. This is the Ethiopian highlands. This is the location of Aksum, which extends even into the Middle East or the Arabian Peninsula. And then finally, this is the Niger River going up to the edges of the Sahara Desert. And you can see sub-Saharan Africa is much greener. You can see the line there. And this is important to understand. All of these individual kingdoms had success for varying reasons that we're studying in this, whether it's the trade opportunity, the religion, the spread of the religions, etc. the rivers help them. This is again the Nile River, showing you earlier. You can see all along the Nile, it's green and lush. So again, this is a very short unit, but it's important. But it's kind of easy if you just take the time to watch this again or just look over the slides again. And it's not a whole lot of information, but remember, Zambezi, Zimbabwe, that's pretty easy. You have Ghana, Mali, Songhai, and that's relative to the Niger River, sub-Saharan. So just break it down into the east, the west, and the south. So Aksum in the east, Ghana, Mali, Songhai to the west, and down in the south, Zambezi. I'm putting this slide up again, obviously, because it's really the key to this whole unit. So if nothing else, take the time to look over this multiple times and just get an idea of the location of these three kingdoms, and that will help you a great deal.